Hello and welcome back to the Stoic Athlete podcast, where we discuss all things sports psychology, stoicism, and give you practical tools and tips to help you as a coach, an athlete, and just in your everyday life. Today, we have the first episode on the Stoic Athlete podcast. This is Kieran Spencer. Hello, Kieran. Hello. No worries. Kieran is a fellow lecturer at the University campus of football business with myself. Kieran has got an extensive amount of experience working in youth leadership, working with County Durham working on the County Durham Board of Trustees, working with the FA Youth Council. Formed the Northumberland FA Youth Council. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Going on to do your PhD as well, which we'll go on to and discuss in a little bit more detail later. And then you also work with Premier League as well, running events for the Premier League.
Yeah, sounds like a lot when you put it that.
Yeah, it's a lot, mate. That's a lot of shit that you're doing. You're a busy old boy. There's a lot on your plate. Yeah, try your best as you do. So in terms of like the work you do with like County Durham, do you want to give us a bit of an idea as actually like what does that role sort of encompass? Like what actually does that role mean day to day, week to week? What sort of things are you doing with County Durham at the moment?
Yeah, of course. So I guess to give a little bit of context around that, my ambitions were always to try and change the way things were working in organisations.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that there was a real gap in terms of board members and the groups that they should be representing. So saw that an opportunity came up to join the Board of Trustees at County Durham Sport. Kind of pitched it to them as, look, you've got a tab on your website with 9 things that you do for young people and 3 things that you do for adults, but you don't have any youth representation on your board, so how do you know that you're doing the right things for them, essentially? And that was enough to convince them that I should join the board.
Quickest interview you've ever had. Yeah.
So one of the questions that I was asked actually in the interview was, do you know what a board does?
Yeah.
And my answer at the time was no.
Oh, my answer would be no, because that's why I'm asking you the question.
Yeah. And I've been there 6 years now.
Yeah.
It's been a journey, and it's been interesting for me because I think as a young person, to try and walk into that sort of setting when you're surrounded by people much older than you that have a lot more experience in various different sort of departments within an organisation.
Yeah.
That can be quite a challenge in order in terms of sort of having a voice, because essentially at board meetings we run through, the finances of the organisation, any legalities,
All the fun stuff.
all the fun
Yeah,
stuff,
all the real.
yeah, all the great stuff, which is exactly the issue. That doesn't appeal to a young person.
Yeah, for sure.
And to be able to sort of have a voice in that is very challenging. And I think I know we're going to touch on my PhD in a bit. It kind of ties in. This is what sort of inspired me to start my PhD, which is around young people in a boardroom and how can organisations sort of meaningfully engage with a young person, because at the moment it's very much there's a set agenda. We're going to talk about HR, we're going to talk about finance. There's no discussion and no room for a young person to be able to step in there and say, this is how I think a young person would like this to be done. Yeah.
I think as well for someone that age, because so you said 6 years ago, right? So you're the same age as me, aren't you? It's 27?
Yeah, I think it was just before I turned 21 that I joined.
Yeah, so at that age, being 20 as well, and I think a lot of those conversations probably, speak for myself with this, but like that would definitely go over my head, that I just wouldn't understand the legalities and the finances and all that kind of stuff. And I guess you kind of said as well about it being like a reasonably intimidating environment to come into, like especially as a 20-year-old. And I think we often think of 20-year-olds as being adults, and like you said, like, oh, well, a young person in the boardroom, 20 years old, that's not a young person. But really, like, I always think about brains take until you're like 25 really to fully form and develop, and for you to get to the point and you're like 20 years old, part of a board, and you're like, you have like imposter syndrome kind of stuff as well, right? You sat in a boardroom with like, I want to call them Garys and Steves and Barbaras that are like, you know, yeah, John, yeah. I have heard that. It's true, actually. Yeah, and 86% of statistics you hear are made up. Yeah, so you know, but, like yeah, but like what do you say, Kevin's and Steve's and what was the other one you said? I don't know. John, a lot of Johns around. But yeah, to go into that sort of environment and to have a good voice, have a not even a good voice, but be able to put your ideas forward with confidence that you have a belief in your own ideas, but also that you believe that this could have an impact on like the youth. I sound like an old man. But this have a positive impact for the youth of today, like for young people. It's something that could definitely be intimidating. But then also, like, what point does it get to where you, as part of that board, then became more confident to put forward the ideas that you had to try and implement those ideas? Was it something that was immediate, or was it something that over time you sort of understood your role, understood why you were there? Like, I'm here, I'm meant to be the voice of the youth of today. Like, what point does it get to that point where you can, I guess, be more confident?
It's absolutely still a challenge. 6 years on, and I'm one of the more senior board members now. So a lot of people, I know, a lot of people have come and gone in my time.
Yeah.
You only get a maximum of 9.
Yeah.
So
of nine board members.
9 years.
Oh,
sorry.
So
I think that's one of the considerations as well when taking on a young person is if I join at 20, then I have to leave when I'm 29, and then
okay.
you lose that again. But yeah, it's definitely still been a challenge, and I still probably only say about one thing per meeting. I make sure it's valuable, and I've been told my contributions are always valuable.
That's good.
But I don't say much, quite honestly, because I definitely still have that imposter syndrome, and it is a real challenge for a young person, as you said, to step into that environment. And I'm not sure currently that there's really a solution. Hence the PhD.
Yeah.
In 6 years' time, we'll find the solution. Because it's tough. It's tough to feel like you're going to be listened to, and people can have the best intentions in the world, particularly those older, more long-standing board members.
Yeah.
You know, they can say, we really want to give this young person an opportunity, but how does that actually look in practice? And I don't think anyone's quite cracked that yet. Yeah.
Of like actually understanding once they have the opportunity, like what they actually do with it, like. How are we gonna? What direction are we gonna take this in with this young person? I think with that kind of, imagine you're gonna get 9 years. It is and it isn't, because 9 years is still a very long time, right? And you could probably do a lot of things in that time. And what you said there as well about like the imposter syndrome of putting forward ideas, like of however many ideas you have, I'm only gonna put forward one. Does that make you think, I guess, like what is the best idea I have at this point in time, and is it better to put my energy into developing this idea rather than thinking of 1,000,001 ideas where one of them pays off, but they're all poor quality. They're not a developed idea that's fully developed and grown and is ready to be implemented, and you've thought through X, Y, and Z scenario where this thing could go wrong. It's better to put forward one strong idea. And you said, like, you don't say a lot, but then does that make the times when you do speak, does that make it more valuable? Does that make it more, people listen more because you're not just waffling on like me? I'm a waffler, guys. I'll be honest with you. But like, does that make your idea seem more valuable because you've only gone and put forward one idea and it's a complete idea rather than something that's like half formed?
I hope so. Yeah, but I think the issue is that there isn't really that forum for ideas. So, you know, one of the main concerns that I have and that I've put forward many times is, in order to have a young person as I said, no young person is going to join and be an expert in HR or an expert in finance. Okay,
To be honest, it'd be really weird if they were.
Yeah. That's for the more long-standing board members that have had their careers, that know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
In those certain aspects, a young person can't really contribute to any of those points.
Those like discussions.
You receive your board papers. Does this look right? Yes, let's sign it off. Okay. And that's the structure of the board. Whereas in reality, if you're going to have a young person, there needs to be that forum for ideas.
Yeah.
I think the main thing that I've sort of started to contribute towards now, I also sit on the HR committee, and where I see my contribution is very much from like a moral and value standpoint. So if I hear something is happening or there's a decision that needs to be made and I don't quite agree with it from a moral standpoint, that's when I'll speak up.
Okay.
I think that's the only real sort of way that I contribute currently. We just interviewed for a new managing director, and I was part of that interview process. First time I've ever interviewed anyone. Terrifying experience, by the way.
You're not meant to be the one that's scared in that scenario.
I know, particularly for such a high level role as well.
Yeah.
The first interview was a managing director.
Yeah.
But we had two candidates, and one could talk the talk, and the other couldn't. But you could tell that there was something about him as a human being.
Yeah.
And immediately, the older board members said, "Oh, person A is right because they're going to take us from here to there. They know exactly what they're doing." And one of my few contributions was, "Well, hold on a minute. That's not exactly what we need for the organisation at the moment. We've gone through a bit of a difficult time, and we need someone to sort of steady the ship. And we need to look at personality more than anything else. And I think the other person had the personality. And as you sort of alluded to before, because I don't speak very often,
carries more weight.
It carries more weight, and we went for the guy that I chose.
It's just how big time you are.
Just managed to sort of persuade the rest of the interview panel to choose this person based on one thing. But like you say, I think it does go down to I don't speak much, so if I do, it's probably quite important.
Yeah, and especially on something like that in terms of, I guess, like reading and interpreting character about someone that, I know he can talk the talk, and there's a lot of people who can talk the talk. Like, I've got the gift of the gab, if I'm being honest. Like, I could talk to a wall and the wall would get bored. But like, for you to be able to identify good character in people is a great skill to have. And like you said, like, steady the ship. If you've gone through a difficult period, the character of the person is probably more important than the being able to talk, the gift of the gab, and being able to chat and all of that. And
I think that's something that a young person can do. I don't think that's something that takes a long time to develop.
No.
Like a real in-depth knowledge of finance and a real in-depth knowledge of HR. I think instinctively you can pick that up, and young people can contribute in that way.
Yeah, like picking up the vibe of a person. I think that's something that, I like in the work I do with some of my clients, we talk a lot about like strengths and super strengths. We go into a lot of that kind of aspect, and a lot of it comes out of organizational research. And with that kind of stuff, you're really looking at, like, for you, for example, in youth leadership or a youth person going into like youth leadership roles and those kind of, it's quite an established role to be in a council, right, and on the board of trustees. And you could definitely, and we talked about imposter syndrome, those sort of things, about like worrying about the contribution of your ideas. If I'm contributing enough, or other things I'm contributing, are they of good quality? And in terms of the strengths and super strength stuff, we quite often focus on like what our weaknesses are, and actually like what are the things I'm not very good at. And we often neglect the things that we are good at, and actually like, how can I emphasize those a bit more? How can I'm a very good read of character, so I'm gonna actually, my contribution will be a little bit more about character and how much I can read people and like the vibe I get off them. And actually this person's giving me a better vibe about their personality, their characteristics that actually would help them to excel in the role. Whereas this other person, he talks a good game, but I don't really believe that he's going to do the best for us or whatever it is. That like, there's a good thing that you can rely back on the strength you have, rather than focusing on like the weaknesses or the lack of experience that you maybe have in that environment. You can focus on the things you are really good at, and that's where you can make significant, meaningful contributions to that kind of thing. And I think, yeah, like that's definitely a nerve. Like you said, like it's weird for you to be the nervous one in that environment, but it's definitely a normal thing. And especially as you are still, because I think we're 27, and again, we said this earlier, like 27, you feel like an adult, but still I think anyway, we're still in this like weird middle period where you're not fully established, you're not fully, I don't think anyone's ever fully developed and like, don't know, can't learn, but I think that we're still for me anyway, I feel like we're still in a developmental phase of getting to the point of like your full form. That's the really cringy way to say it, but like to get to a point of like where you're actually, you know yourself the best, you know yourself really well, and you know what you're good and bad at, and even if you have certain insufficiencies in a certain role, you're still able to get the best out of that role by bringing your best game to that kind of role. And in leadership stuff as well, and in like organizations, you sometimes talk about the empty chair, and it sounds a lot like you're the empty chair, or like you're filling the empty chair within that environment. That the empty chair is this concept that in an organization, in a business, in a team, tell me if I'm telling you something you already know, but the empty chair is essentially this thing of, within an organization, they typically will hire the similar kind of people, similar characteristics, and often we neglect the things that we like. We won't have a characteristic, so we might not have, in this case, say like a young person that has a different perspective, that's a good read of people, and can maybe judge, actually, will this person be the best for this organization, for the young people, rather than just like for what the organization wants. Or like, you know, like they might have different objectives to what young people would actually really want. So it's allowed you to come in and almost be that empty chair position where everyone is all singing from the same song sheet, but actually you have a different perspective that provides something different and new that maybe they hadn't considered, which is really important within an organisation to have. And if people don't have that in like an organisation, quite often you encourage them to think about, what in this scenario, what is the empty chair, or who is the empty chair, what is the perspective we're not getting. And that might be also why you ended up getting that kind of role, is they might have sat there and gone, actually, like what's the role, or what's the perspective we're not getting at the moment, and then gone, right, maybe we should bring in, or it might have even been in your interview and you've gone, you're a bunch of old farts. You're like, I think you need someone who's a little bit younger, who's in touch with the youths, that can actually bring a new perspective.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think I sort of alerted them to the fact that they needed someone like me.
Yeah.
Which you don't often get. You know, young people kind of get a bit of a bad rap, especially at the moment, for not really being active in their communities or wanting to enact any change. But that's, from what I've seen in the circles that I kind of work in, is not the case. There's a load of people out there that want to do good stuff. And I think I'll just go back to another interesting point that you made around not being fully formed ever really, and not having taken the time to sort of reflect and grow as you progress throughout your career. I know we'll move on to sort of the youth leadership stuff that I've done with the FA and things like that, but those programs are designed to do just that. So we've gone through leadership training with world-class teachers, people at the top of their game, that travel all around the world to sort of develop these leadership skills in bigger businesses, but we're also doing it with young people. So the sort of reflective journey and journey of personal development that we go on throughout sort of all of the FA's programs and their youth leadership things, I think we, talking about the participants of those programs, have done a hell of a lot more than these old board members. So, you know, people have gone through life and they've had different jobs and they've grown and developed throughout that and ended up on a board. People like myself have actually really put the hours in to do that work early on. So I think I know myself really, really well. because of that journey.
Mm.
And I think that's something that other people potentially miss out on, and that was kind of fed to us at the time, that we've been on a sort of leadership and personal development journey that people 30, 40 years ahead of us in their careers never went through.
Yeah.
So I think we're in a better position.
Because of the experiences that you've had, like with those leadership. So with say like those leadership courses, and you said that's put you in a really good position to be in the position you are now, and maybe speak your own mind and all those sort of things. But from those leadership courses and things that you'd gone through, and you said they're some of the world's best at that kind of thing. They're coming in and giving you this service and delivering that with you. What are some of the things that you, if you were to reflect on them now, that you took away from those experiences of when they've come in and taught you things and done these workshops? I assume it's like workshops and seminars, things like that. Like, what are some of the like key things that you took away from those experiences that are maybe helping you with the positions that you're in now?
I think first one is comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
Moving yourself out of your comfort zone. We were always encouraged to, you're always in a room with new people at these kinds of things, and my default setting is very much an introvert.
Yeah.
And until I get to know you, when I become very loud and obnoxious.
You're not loud and obnoxious, Kieran. Not at all.
Before you get to know me, I'm very much an introvert, and we were sort of forced out of our comfort zones, obviously in a sort of managed and safe way, but never sit with the same person.
Yeah.
Have new conversations with people.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I've taken with me, and I have to say, since leaving, I'm maybe not as good at it as I was at the time. I would just go and sit with anyone, spark up a conversation. Like, I think that's a real skill that for someone like myself needed that sort of push to develop. I also think sort of reflection.
Yeah.
We did a lot about reflection, and everything that I learned on these programs is essentially fed into my teaching now. So I'm leading on a module called Skills for Learning, which essentially you're looking at yourself. Where do you want to be in the future? How are you going to get there?
Yeah.
Personal development plan, goal setting, things like that. And these are all things that we discuss sort of at Leadership Academy. So thanks, because I've stolen quite a lot of that from my module.
I actually don't know anything. I'm just repurposing everything I've ever been given. Yeah.
But actually, in the process of rewriting the module, realised that I'd actually taken away a lot more than I initially thought I had. A lot of it sunk in. So comfort zones, goal setting, reflecting, some real sort of key skills in there that I think you need to put the time in to develop. I think it's often, you would assume that those things just develop over time, and potentially they do.
Yeah.
But going through this process and doing it early on means it sort of sits with you all the time. And I remember a point where someone on the youth council did this presentation. He said, right, now I can't remember what the presentation was about.
It's a great presentation.
But I took a message from it.
Okay.
So he had sort of been out on a walk, and he looked at a tree, and something in him had triggered that this could link to some sort of leadership lesson. Okay, and he built this whole project around it.
Yeah.
And I was sat there thinking, how have you gone and looked at a tree and suddenly built a whole leadership lesson from it?
It's impressive.
I was in my first year, and I was thinking, how does that happen?
Yeah.
And in the years following, having been immersed in it so often, I think all of the lessons that we've taken really do embed themselves in your life. I can go anywhere and look at anything now and think, I could use that in a lecture, and I could turn that into some sort of lesson. And I think you're really set for life in terms of the skills that you get from those things. Communication, another massive one.
Yeah.
I think that's something that really lacks in organisations at the moment, and is a real downfall, because being specific, you know, not saying I'm going to be there at 5 past if you're going to be there at 1/4 past.
Yeah.
Tiny details and things like that. So we've just got a good set of standards.
Mm.
I think that's definitely something I've taken with me and tried to sort of carry through
Yeah.
my life, really.
It's like having good standards, good communication skills. All these things are really transferable as well. It's not just, okay, this is filled for made for the Premier League, like Leadership Academy, where we're going to get these young kids to develop and grow, and we're going to use them for the Premier League, and they're going to be great for us. But actually, whatever you do in that organisation, the skills you learn and develop will help you throughout your whole life, help you in every aspect of your life. And I always say this with sport, that sport is a vehicle for personal development as well, that for young people playing sport, it should be a vehicle for them to develop reflective skills, leadership skills, communication skills, all of these things that actually when they leave the sport, they're going to be better off for it, because in the workplace, they're going to know how to deal with conflict, they're going to know how to communicate more effectively, or they're going to know where their position is maybe within a team or whatever it is. I think those sort of things all sort of help and help you as you develop and you grow. And yeah, I guess, like, how long were you in that academy for, the Leadership Academy?
So I attended 1 year,
Mm.
then I joined the youth council.
You say
following it.
tended, what do you mean?
So I was a participant,
Okay.
receiving all the workshops,
Mhm.
joining in with everyone else, and then it's run by the FA Youth Council. So I joined
Okay.
the Youth Council the next year. So we're sort of planning it and preparing it for the next
Mm.
2 years after that. So I've done 3.
Wow. Yeah. When you were younger, is that something you knew you wanted to do?
So I sort of, absolutely not. I sort of fell into it. I think my family is sort of quite against sort of this blue sky thinking and all this airy fairy stuff.
Yeah.
No.
That's my mum works in bigger businesses, and she talks about blue sky thinking, and I'm like,
yeah. And I think a lot of people are kind of like, oh yeah, okay.
this again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was never anything that was really on my radar, and I even went into it
Mm.
thinking that as well. But was very quickly had my mind changed. But even rewinding, there was always something in me that wanted to be involved in football for some reason.
Yep.
And sort of fell into that side of it. So I attended Durham FA. All county FAs used to run a thing called Football Futures.
Yeah.
And my closest one, Durham FA, were running this camp. I think I was 16, 17. And I thought, yeah, I'll go along, see what it's about. And that sort of started it, really.
Mm.
It was more practical back then, so there was bits of coaching, bits of refereeing.
So you got to put your foot in. What's the saying? Fingers in a lot of pies?
Yeah, I got to
I don't think that's even.
lots of pies.
I don't think that's the right one, is it? That doesn't quite.
Football Futures.
You got to try a lot of different things.
Yeah,
You got
try
to
before you buy.
you got to try a lot of different pies. Yeah,
Absolutely.
we're gonna roll with that one. That's
All the different pies. But yeah, like I say, it was very practical. But there were still elements of leadership stuff within there. It was very much kind of disguised behind coaching and refereeing. And that was my sort of first taste of it. And then I guess that planted the seed, because I didn't sort of revisit it for another couple of years until I was at university.
Yeah.
And sort of just ended up on that path, fell in love with it and kind of obsessed over it, and then now turned it into my full-time job.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is, I think, one of the things that I thought when I was doing youth work when I was younger, and I worked with NCS and was doing this school engagement, did stuff where I was actually out on program and working as a team leader, and I struggled with this a little bit myself, but then also I saw it a lot in the young kids that I was working with, was that sort of a lack of direction or a lack of sense of purpose. And for me, my personal view is that, for men specifically, I feel like men need a purpose, something that they are working towards, that in terms of for well-being, I think that a sense of purpose and meaning is really important, I think, specifically for men. But I've always felt quite lucky that when I was 16, I knew I wanted to be a sports psychologist. I don't know why. I just knew, and like it happened the first like couple weeks into my A levels. I was quite young for my year as well, so I was still like 16, and going into my A levels and studying psychology, I knew I loved sport. I was doing PE, and we did sports psychology in PE, and I did a A level in psychology as well. And something just in me clicked. I thought I wanted to be a physio. I then did that, and then I knew, no, sports psychology. My PE teacher had told me this was a thing you could do. I didn't know. Again, wasn't on my radar at all. Didn't know that was a thing. Did my A levels, and then it came to another point where I'd finished my degree, and I really hadn't done as well as I wanted to do, and I really hadn't applied myself in a way that I wanted to, and sort of took this year out. And this is where I worked for NCS, and I thank NCS and the work that I did for them massively, because in terms of my confidence in presenting and all these like things that I learned, even though I really didn't, I don't want to say hated the job, but I didn't really enjoy the job whilst I was in it. It was the first job I could get. I was like, oh, this is going to be easy. And then I did it, and I was like, it is easy, but that's not good, because it was too easy and I didn't enjoy it. And then that made me go back. But in that year period, it really did take me like a year of working this job to realise that I wanted to go back and be a sports psychologist. And I had that sort of year period of really questioning, like, do I want to be a sports psychologist? Is that something I want to do? And then I went on to do my masters, and then I'm here now. And like, but it was that thing of, as you said, like when you started doing things, you started to actually do and work in that environment, and then you realise this is what I really want to do. And that was the same for me after my masters, going and actually starting to work as a sports, going to the training routes, all these things. I realised, like, yeah, this is what I'm meant to be doing. Like, this is really something I'm meant to be doing. And I think that with young men and like young people in general, I always found in school there was this thing of like, you need to know what you're going to do. You need to know exactly what you're going to do, what route you're going to go down. Start preparing now. Whatever degree you pick, that's what you're doing for the rest of your life. Like, that's everything. And I personally, I think it's kind of like a bullshit thing. And I think that a lot of people are then instilled with this idea that, like, I need to know exactly what I'm going to do, and I need to have a real sense of purpose with doing it, and like I need to like know exactly like this. But sometimes it just takes for you to just put your foot into, like, get your foot in the door, go and do something, and then realize that actually, like, yeah, this is what I want to do. Or on the other side, like, this is not what I want to do. Like, I thought I wanted to do this, I've started to do it. Oh, this is actually kind of shit. Like, I don't enjoy this at all. Okay, I need to get out of this. What's the next thing? If I don't want to do this, what's something else I could do? And a lot of people really struggle with that. And I think a lot of young people struggle with that, of actually knowing what they want to do. And I think part of it is just, yeah, a bit of a, I don't know, like, fuck it attitude of like, try lots of different pies along the way. Yeah, if you see a crumble, maybe dip into that as well. You never know what's going to work out for you. But like, if you try lots of different things and detach yourself from the outcome of like, is this going to be this is exactly what I want to do, and this is going to be my career, and this, detach yourself from that and just enjoy the process of trying different things to see if this is what I want to do. I think that's fine. And I think that if you get to a point where you've maybe done 3 jobs in 3 years and you've realised that none of these jobs were really for me, I think that's also fine. I think you get to that point and you go, well, I've ticked off 3 things I don't want to do. And if an employer was to say to me, oh, well, why did you leave these jobs within a year? You could go, well, I went into the job thinking it was this thing. It wasn't that. And I'm really passionate about X, Y, and Z. And I think I would be really good at this thing. That's why I wanted to change. And I think that would be more inspiring to an employer, that you're authentic and honest, than it would be to just, lie and be like, lie to yourself.
Like you say, you've got to immerse yourself in opportunities. I was sort of similar in terms of quite set on what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a football development officer in a county FA.
Yeah.
That was the job.
Yeah.
Everyone on Leadership Academy, everyone on Youth Council, not quite Leadership Academy, the sort of 20 or so, over my couple of years there, were involved in that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So everyone was getting a role as a football development officer. It's kind of like a sort of
rite of passage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're sort of churning them out to hearing what that job's like from people that I respected and trusted sort of put me off a little bit.
Yeah.
And so when I graduated, I went and became a supply teacher.
Fun.
Thought,
Did that as well. That was, yeah.
Yeah. Character building.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think trying that out, something that I thought, like you, I thought, I can do that.
Yeah.
It might not be like my biggest passion, but I can do it. Is absolutely what inspired me then to want to be a lecturer. So I got this role when we joined last year.
Yeah, same time.
25.
By the way, we started exactly the same day together. I've known Kieran since I started at this university, just to give some context. He just followed me around for like 2 days. It was really like, I couldn't get rid of him, but you know, it is what it is.
So I joined then, but I was looking back at some of my master's work that I did, and in that we had to set out a plan for what we wanted to achieve in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
And on that plan, I'd said that I wanted to be a lecturer. It's like 2 years prior to starting.
Yeah.
And I think it was definitely the supply teaching that made me realise that, because I thoroughly enjoy teaching.
Yeah.
So when I saw the very, very rare moments when I was a supply teacher where the penny dropped for someone,
yeah,
a little sparkle in their eye, they understood something, I really sort of thrived off of that.
Yeah.
And I thought, great, I love that, I love the process of teaching, but I just don't like all the child minding that you have to do in a secondary school.
Yeah.
I'd much rather do it where people actually want to be there
Yeah.
at university. So
like semi-adults, like university. Like, I don't want to be because I think university students are so close to being like a fully fledged adult. But I think that society will often look to them as like a semi-adult. They're not, because you're not a teenager, you're not an adolescent anymore, but you're in this weird period where people still look at you as if you're kind of a child.
And it is
like,
a weird period.
Yeah.
Exactly like you said before, you know, some people have got their life completely mapped out, know exactly what they want to do. Some people haven't got a clue, and that's absolutely fine. And I thought, yeah, that's the kind of group of people I want to work with. But it was trying something else as a supply teacher that made me realise that.
That's what you wanted to do.
Myself into a different opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. I think I think lecturing was it just comes around quite naturally. It genuinely was something that I just fell into it. Like, genuinely was just, I think I said this to you before about, like, went out for lunch with my mate. The university that his girlfriend was working at was hiring a lecturer, and she was like, do you want me to put you forward? And I was like, yeah, I mean, that would be great. And then I got a role and then sort of fell into it. And I don't know, my mum told me forever I would be a good teacher. And I, the same as you, don't want the child minding, didn't want to have to look after young kids that really don't want to be there and can often be probably quite disrespectful from my experience of supply teaching. Yeah, I just couldn't do that, but lecturing just felt very natural. And I think part of that comes into like what I would identify as one of my greatest like character strengths is and it's not trying to be like arrogant, like genuinely, like I just think one of my greatest strengths is being personable and being able to build relationships with people. And at a university, and like especially like UCFB, like my class size is quite small. First years we had 14, 15 students. I can build a really good relationship with all those students. I think within a school, I'd struggle with that because you're getting loads of different students all the time. I'd struggle to build really good, strong relationships where I understand them really well. But it was just something I sort of like fell into. And I guess if we move on to like your PhD a little bit, I guess your PhD and the inspiration for your PhD, building on that point, is probably something you, I guess, fell into, as opposed to 18-year-old Kieran Spencer's going, tell you what I really want to do. I want to do a PhD where I investigate how sporting bodies can meaningfully engage young people. I got that right, didn't I? Yeah.
You did, yeah.
How sporting bodies can, meaningfully engage young people. Like, that wasn't something you had in mind, but then through your experiences so far, it's something that's now just naturally come up and something that you're interested in doing. So, do you want to tell me a little bit more about, what is this research that you're going to be looking to do? And assume, because you're starting in September, you'd have had to write a proposal and stuff, right, to go on to site. I've not done a PhD yet. I'll get there, guys, don't worry. I'll get there. But that's something you've not done yet. Oh, sorry, that's something I've not done yet. what was, I guess, like your proposal around, like, why is that something that they've gone, yeah, this is gonna be a good PhD that we should get big boy Kieran to come in and and do?
I think it's very well recognised now, partly because of the work of the FA and youth leadership programs and things like that, that there is a need to have young people in the boardroom.
Yeah.
And organisations are starting to accept that, starting to get on board and have the best sort of intentions in engaging with young people. But as I kind of said from my own experience as a counter-Durham sport, the way that that's done is not sort of optimal, I don't think, at the moment. So I just want to kind of have some sort of mechanism at the end of it, or something that can influence policy and practice to say, well, actually, we know that you have the intention, but to avoid making it tokenistic and just saying we've got a young person sat in a room, how can you actually meaningfully engage with them? And these are the steps to do it, because that's not been done yet. And I think that was kind of the proposal. It's going to be sort of 3 stages, obviously looking at the literature and seeing what else is out there. There's had a little dig pre-starting, and there's stuff out there. There's interest around the topic. But not a whole wealth of information at the moment. Second stage is going to be sort of working with young people that are currently in board roles and saying what works, what doesn't, what would you like to see, and then the third stage is working with those older board members to say how does it fit, because don't get me wrong, I'm a huge advocate for young people being on boards, but there's absolutely a need for those more experienced people to be there. You know, I think sometimes the tension can arise where older people that have been there for a long time think young people are coming to try and change the world and get rid of us all, and you know, we're going to be wiped out, kind of thing. Not at all. It's something that we talk about quite often with the FA's youth adult partnerships. Because it's absolutely essential. Young people aren't going to be able to go there and run an organisation. It's not about that. It's about having a seat at the table, but being able to meaningfully engage in the conversation, so that the people that have been there for a long time, that are the doers and the enablers, have a more rounded mindset of things, and have a deeper understanding of how's that actually going to work for a young person. Because football, for example, which I'm immersed in and potentially could be the route for my PhD, is the stats are 70% of people that play football are under 25. Well, how many people under 25 are in the boardroom and making those decisions? It's older people that are making decisions for younger people in the game that they play. So it's about sort of, as I say, getting people that seat at the table, but also making sure that it's done in the right way.
Because I mean, we sort of spoke a little bit off camera, like before we started recording, about, I guess, the difference between, because I said I went to, like, say, like actively engage young people, and you were like, no, like meaningfully engage. And you were very adamant of like the word matters, and like the language does really matter. So for you, like, what's the difference between actively engaging and meaningfully engaging someone or a young person?
I think actively engaging is having the person in the room, and I think that happens, or is starting to happen, more and more. If someone's just sat in a room and not contributing, it's not meaningful in my eyes. I think there needs to be mechanisms, and again, we spoke before about there's sort of no structure in place at the moment for a young person to get involved. I think the sort of case study of Manchester FA, for example. This is just something I've heard. If it's not true, then no one.
Don't fact check any of this. This is all true.
They're sort of seen as one of the sort of pioneers in terms of board diversity and things like that. And one of my friends actually sat on their board for a period as a young board member, and they set aside time in their agenda
Yeah.
for discussion.
Yeah.
And I think that's the issue at the moment, is the structure of a board meeting is very much, let's sign that off, let's sign that off, let's sign that off. Anyone got any comments on that?
Yeah.
You know? Whereas if you carve out time to have a discussion that a young person can get involved in,
Yeah.
then that's how you're meaningfully engaging them.
So I would translate that as well into coaching practices for like when you're working with young athletes, just in general as a coach, but in terms of the meaningful engagement rather than like active engagement, like asking them for a quick comment as opposed to asking them what they think about X, Y, and Z, and open it up for a discussion as to like how they feel the session went, what would be better, how could I change it, what sort of drills do you like that I already do, is there anything that I don't do at the moment that like you would like me to do more of as a coach. And I think it's quite a difficult thing as a coach to do as well, is to open up that discussion, and it's probably difficult for like older board members to do as well, right? But with athletes, like younger athletes, younger board members, things like that, opening up the discussion to allow them to feel a sense of like, oh, actually this is my chance to put things forward, like rather than them having to actively go out their way to try and actually put an idea forward. They have a chance and an opportunity to do that. And I think that's important within a coaching practice as well, is to actively engage is one thing, but to meaningfully engage an athlete or a player. It's hard saying an athlete because I always think of like an older athlete, but like as a young player, like meaningfully engage them in the conversation with you, where they feel a sense of, and talk about like motivation for people to be involved in a boardroom and to stay involved with the boardroom and not leave the position. I assume if you go into it for 9 years, you don't have to stay for 9 years if you want to leave. So like you want to keep them involved for the 9-year period because they're going to develop and grow over that time. But to have that sense of like autonomy, have a sense of when we talk about motivation, you talk about like 3 different basic human needs. It's like competence, autonomy, relatedness. For them to have a sense of autonomy around like the ideas they can put forward and like control over the things that they would like to work on, the competence to believe that actually their ideas are good as well. I believe that you only like breed competence through making mistakes and through experiences. If you don't allow them the experiences to do that, they're not going to develop even better ideas in the future. And then the relatedness of actually having relationships with, you said about adult youth relationship, have that relatedness between you and the older board members, that they understand where you're coming from, they know you as an individual, and they know that even if an idea probably isn't the best at this point in time, you're doing it with good intentions, and it's something that actually if someone a little bit older who understood the logistics of it a little bit more got involved with that idea, they could take that idea from being like a pretty average, mediocre idea to be something that actually is a really good project in the future. I think there are a lot of similarities between like the things you're talking about and the things that coaches can do in terms of their own practices, in terms of like meaningful engagement as opposed to just active engagement. And yeah, I didn't even think about that really until you said that to me earlier about the difference between active and meaningful like engagement with people. And I think that's a really important distinction to make. So yeah, man, PhD starting September, that's mad. That's going to be 6 oh my god, I'm immediately regretting all my decisions. Yeah, but that's going to be crazy, like to do that kind of thing, and then the impact that can have further down the line as well, right, would be incredible.
That's the hope, is, you know, something positive comes out of it that people can use.
Yeah.
I want sort of, I think that's, as I said, the intent's there. It's just sort of missing that piece of how exactly do we do this. So, you know, to hopefully try and put across some guidance or sort of things that people can implement. In terms of, you know, we know you want to do it.
Yeah.
This is what we would recommend. Something tangible to come out of it would be nice.
Sure. Yeah. From the projects that you've done so far, with like County Durham, FA Youth Council, obviously like forming Northumberland, FA like Youth Council, from like any projects and stuff that you've done with them, what's the thing that you're probably the most proud of that you've done so far?
I think I'm most proud of think the person that I've become,
Yeah.
genuinely, I think when I look back at myself as like a sort of just finishing school, I don't come from a sporty background at all.
Yeah.
My family aren't sporty, like no one at all.
Yeah.
Didn't
Well,
do-
we had a staff versus students game, and I asked Kieran to play in the
Yeah,
game,
no
and he was like, "No."
My supervisor asked me yesterday,
Yeah.
what position do you play?
I don't know.
Not sporty at all. Didn't even do GCSE PE.
Yeah.
Decided for some reason, because I'd done my level 1 coaching badge, really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Said, I'll do A level PE. They said, are you sure? You've not done GCSE PE and you can't play. Genuinely was like, they were trying to put me off.
Yeah.
Look at me now, Institute of Sport Business, doing a PhD, so have that. But I just think,
Look at me now.
Sorry. I try and do right by people,
Mm.
and I try and support people to be the best versions of themselves that they can be. And I think being a lecturer now allows me to try and support. Well, we had 105 people on foundation year last year. Try and support people on their journeys and get them to where they want to be. And I think it's those little moments where people achieve something. Like had a student already has got a job with the FA that was on foundation year last year.
Pretty crazy.
Those little things, I just think I like to think that I've played a part in that.
Mm.
And so those little nuggets are those sort of my key sort of achievements. But I think just who I've become, thinking about who I was, like couldn't really form an opinion on anything, struggled really to hold a conversation with anyone.
You're struggling today. This has been real hard work.
I know.
Yeah.
But to just, I think just be a good person in the world. And I think
Yeah.
I've done that.
Yeah.
And will continue to do that. I think that's my proudest achievement.
Cool. So rather than like one specific achievement, it's the accumulation of those that have like led you to this point now.
That's more important. I think if you place too much importance on sort of things, then what's your motivation really to continue? If the next thing's 3 years away, that could be a struggle. But if you're constantly just trying to do right by people, I think that's something you can be proud of.
Yeah, I mean, Stephen Sinek talks a lot about like finding like what Simon's. Jeez, so I've got in my head is that we were talking about Steve's, Kevin's, and board members. That's what I've got in my head. Is like Simon Sinek talks a lot about the like finding your why, and like it sounds a lot to me like your why is a lot about helping people, and it's really butchering the work that. Stephen Sinek, Simon Sinek has done, but like your thing sounds like your why sounds a lot about helping and engaging with people and developing people, and just getting better at that, at developing others, and in the process of doing that and developing and helping others to develop, you've developed yourself without even. I think that's the greatest thing sometimes, is that you work on things which are meant for other people, and in the process you develop an understanding of yourself, which is something that you don't always realise along the way. I was not saying until it's too late, but it's not too late. Cause
I think I started off the journey quite selfish, to be honest. I thought, ooh, free kit. Genuinely.
Yeah.
That's quite cool. Work for the FA when I'm 18, 19.
Yeah.
I'll have a bit of that.
Yeah.
Brag about it.
Feeling like a big dog.
And absolutely had my mind changed in terms of, it's not about that at all. It's about other people. And I think purpose is a really important thing, as you touched on. We did a whole workshop on Simon's book.
That's gonna.
About finding purpose.
Yeah.
And it is something that's really important to try and get early on. I think if you're always chasing a job title, or you want to earn X amount of money, then you're setting yourself up for failure. Whereas if your purpose is actually, I want to develop myself to be this kind of person, and I want to help people in this way, that for me is sort of like go back to the word meaningful.
Yeah.
As a meaningful purpose.
Yeah, for sure. I know that like for me is very similar with being a sports psych, is the chasing down accreditation and seeing all these great roles, and being really like envious. There's a difference between envy and jealousy, and I think jealousy is like within jealousy I think holds resentment, whereas envious is like wanting things what other people have, without resentment. I try and make the distinction between the two, but like I was very envious of like other people in like really good positions, and like, oh, how am I ever going to get to that point? And for me, I felt a lot better personally about myself and about the work that I was doing when I came to an understanding that actually, if I can just be as good as I can be at what I do and just continue to develop that, I'm going to get better results with my clients, because ultimately the work I do as a psych isn't it's not about me, it's about the client and what they get from the interaction with me and how I can help them. So it is very like selfless and empathetic a lot of the time. And if I was so like focused on like, oh, what am I getting from this thing, as you said, like, oh, the new kit, and like, if I'm so focused on myself, then I don't give the service that the client needs, and then I don't develop as much, and I get a lot more satisfaction and sense of purpose now from reading a chapter of a book and then going, rather than me going, yeah, I'm a big dad, no, like all about REBT now, yeah, like rather than that, it's like, how could I've got a client in 2 days' time, how is that going to help me with that session? This one little nugget is going to help me to give a better service and do something better for them. And I know that took a little bit of time to come around to at the start, because you are very much like titles and everything, like all these things that you want, and then you detach yourself from that and you feel so much happier about like everything. Yeah.
It's tough not to be envious of people. You look at people that you went to school with that
yeah.
hardly ever there, and then they've gone on to be a builder on 90 grand a year driving a Mercedes.
Yeah. Well, they're a forex trader.
I tried. How's this work? So it's a tough journey.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think when you find that sense of purpose that you're sort of having an impact in the world, it's nice.
Yeah, I know, like seeing that in a client, and for you, like seeing that in the impact you have on like a young person, seeing the change. And I think, it goes from working with clients to like youth leadership. I think it translates across both, because I know when I was working on NCS, seeing the change in the young person from week 1 to week 3 was amazing. Like to see like this kid that was so shy and like really couldn't come out of the shell to being this really like comfortable and outspoken and energetic, and like they're really happy to put across ideas and all these things. And especially with them with clients now, that gives me a lot more like, I don't know, happiness to see that change in someone else, of like, and like you said before, like I feel like I've played a part in that. I've actively, meaningfully played a part in having that, or influencing that child or that athlete or that person, that coach, and that means more to me now to then like just have a title that I'm, as much as I would love to be Chelsea sports psychologist, and God knows we need one at the moment. I think our one actually left. I think he left. Like I might get there at some point. I might not. If I don't, I don't, and that's fine, because there'll be other opportunities. And for now, I'm happy with where I am and the route that I'm going down, and that's great. The last thing, I know we've not gone on to the Premier League stuff, but that's fine. The fly in here.
Yeah, he's been darting about for a bit.
Hey, oh my God. Last thing, trying to do it. This is obviously the first episode, so I'm still playing around with a couple of things, and we'll maybe change this. I don't know, but the last sort of question I want to leave my episodes on is around strengths, and around like your greatest strengths. Like what do you feel is your greatest strength? And when I say this, I mean there's a great journal article by Katie Ludlam. I was going to call her Kate, but it's Katie Ludlam. It was out of Sheffield Hallam, and they did this whole thing on super strengths in elite sport, and they talk about a super strength being something for an athlete, which is like a strategy for performance that gives you a unique competitive advantage that you can use in a competitive environment. A lot of psychology jargon. It does work. Don't hate me. But like, to simplify it down a little bit, like you have your strengths, which are like obviously things that you're very good at. You have weaknesses, and then we talk about things that were like sinking the boat, but we're not going to talk about those. in terms of a super strength, something that you feel you are better than most people at, that you have the potential to be world class at, what's something that you individually would say is like your greatest like super strength? Put you on the spot.
I was asked this on a Q&A panel many years ago, and the answer that I gave had a mixed reaction.
Okay.
I think it's still the same. And
I'll brace
in
myself.
In a positive way and in a healthy way.
Mm-hmm.
But I obsess over things
Okay.
in the most productive way possible, I think. So if I'm going to do something, believe that that's all I'm thinking about for the longest time. So PhD, for example, I'm not the smartest person in the world. I know that.
Yeah, I know that as well.
But I'm so passionate about it.
Yeah.
And obsessed with it that I know I'll give it absolutely everything for 6 years. And that's a long time, but I know that I'll be able to do that because everything that I do, I obsess and eventually get there.
Yeah.
Sort of, you can sort of tie in perseverance and endurance and grit and things like that, if you like. But I'd put it down to obsession in a positive, healthy way.
Yeah.
If I want to do something, I am going to do it.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I think, like obsession, being like just ridiculously obsessed about something, because then that leads into the next question, which is then with your super strength being obsession and being able to be, you said about like persistence, grit, resilience, like, but really it's tied into like your obsessive nature with whatever it is. At times, our greatest like super strengths can become a weakness. So at what times does the obsessive thing, 'cause you said it's in a positive context, at times does that ever become a weakness? Or how would that ever present itself as a weakness?
I think a fixation on unattainable things, potentially. So spending too much time thinking I'm going to get this role, I'm going to be a football development officer at a county FA, and obsessing over that, and the mindset shifting and realising actually that's not really what I want, and I probably could have obsessed over something else for a period of time, which you're not always going to get right, and that's absolutely fine. So definitely that, I'd say, sort of fixating too much on certain elements that potentially aren't that important. I think now I've got to that sort of healthy stage, like I said before, sort of obsessing over myself, again in a positive way, and trying to be a good person, and following that through with absolutely everything that I do. And then again, of course, with PhD. But there's certainly times where that could be an issue.
But it sounds like now with the obsession around like just being a better person helps to counteract the times where that could potentially be a weakness. But having the awareness of, like, it sounds like you already have an awareness of where it can verge on being a weakness from previous experience that's allowed you to then probably optimize that to like the best that it can be and use that to the best it can be. I'll wrap that up there. Thank you very much for tuning in today, guys. Kieran, thank you very much for coming in.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Such intense eye contact at the end. Guys, thank you very much for tuning in, listening to today's episode. This has been the Stoic... Words. What are words? This has been the Stoic... I'm looking at the wrong camera again. Oh my God. It's, what it is, the intro bit. You can cut this out, it's fine. We'll leave it in. It makes it funnier. Thank you for tuning in today, guys. Thank you for tuning into the Stoic Athlete podcast. This is the first podcast where we've had a guest on the episode. So look forward to having more guests on the podcast as well. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take the salute out.